Well, Joseph, thanks for joining me this morning.
You're welcome, Ewan. Thanks for having me on.
I know you train elite athletes in physiotherapy and massage, etc., and you specialize in body movement, yoga, breathing techniques, etc. So we're keen to tap into some of your positivity.
Yeah, great.
There's a lot of people who, through the current circumstances, have been removed from their ergonomically designed office chair that might provide a bit more back support, etc.
Yeah.
So, firstly, we're looking for your advice in terms of posture, and I'm probably not exhibiting a good posture, but posture and suppleness when working in different environments, if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really, really good question. What the chairs that generally you will get in an office are really well designed in that they adjust to different people and then adjust to different sizes. So they'll go up and down, and you'll be able to move the back in and out. And also the desks, the modern day desks also will adjust in height, and your screens, you can really move these around quite easily. When someone is doing a desk fit or fitting a desk to a person, they'll look to get the ankles, the knees, and the hips at 90 degrees. Okay, 90 degrees is a square. So if you can use that same general rule when you're setting up your workstation, try and get the idea of the knees being at 90 degrees and the hips being at 90 degrees and the ankles being flat on the floor, then you're going to get the same idea as if you had one of these fancy ergonomic chairs. Now, you might have to use a little bit of imagination to be able to get this to happen. And what that might look like is like taking old books, textbooks. If you have a really old yellow pages still knocking around, you might have to dust that off. But something like that, something like a block to be able to maybe raise up the floor height to get your feet supported, or maybe raise the chair height to be able to give you that support. And once they had that, then their whole spine and their whole upper body is going to be much more ergonomically open for them to be able to breathe. And then that is going to help their whole system to, like you say, be more positive. You're going to get more air in through your lungs, and you're going to be more able to do your work and to be able to have a happy experience at the desk. The other option, which I would say is also an idea, is find a spot where you can actually stand and perhaps put your laptop or your paperwork or take phone calls when you're standing, and really open up your hips and open up your spine and get the lungs open again. I used to say to people, find a filing cabinet in the office and maybe put your laptop on the filing cabinet. That may look like there's a piece of furniture around your house, maybe like a bookcase or like a tall piece of furniture, and you can maybe just have a go at working at that for maybe a section of the day. Maybe be able to take spells of 20 or 30 minutes and be at that.
So hips and knees at 90 degrees.
Hips and knees 90 degrees. Yeah. There's a nice little mantra for you be able to remember. Yeah.
You're showing your age by referencing the yellow pages, but I'll move quickly on from that.
That was the website, wasn't it?
I know you're big into the power of breathing, particularly in terms of overcoming anxiety and stress, which can be a big issue in this day and age for people. Can you talk me through that and the importance of breathing techniques?
I feel as though a common issue that I see that comes through my clinic and that I see in students who come to classes, and I notice this as well, teachers asking me quite a bit, how do we work with this and how do we change this? And it's that relationship between the core and between the hips. And quite often what I see is that people have if you like, the core and the hips mixed up into one muscle group or one activation group. And what I see with people's breathing quite often is that people are breathing a lot with their chest and their rib cage, and they breathe in and out in this kind of bellows type movement. Now, that's really effective if you're really breathing really hard, like if you're exercising, if you've been riding a bike, or if you've been running and you really want to get lots of air in, but it's actually quite inefficient. It's actually quite a high amount of workload to be using those muscles, when actually your belly breathing and breathing from down in around your belly button is actually a lot easier for you to be able to do at rest. And so what I see in people a lot, and I experienced this myself a lot when I was playing high level rugby, is that I was really using a lot of energy to breathe, and actually my core muscles were really linked into my hips, and I was using my core to stabilize rather than to breathe. And this subtle, really gentle breath work or breath exercises can be really, really nice at reestablishing that efficiency and the ease of breath. And that can loosen the diaphragm. The diaphragm muscle is that separator between your lungs and between your stomach and your internal organs in your abdominal cavity. And so by using the core muscles and the diaphragm really efficiently, you get this really easy, really efficient breath. And you're actually then only using your big rib cage muscles when you're doing high intensity, like when you are doing your exercise. So this is about repatterning really subtly the way in which the mechanics of the breath work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so practically, how do I go about that?
Practically, what you want to do is you'd want to spend some time and really concentrate, bring your inner awareness into where you're breathing from. So this is taking some time out, putting your phone on silent, or putting a timer on your phone is really handy to use the phone to give you the 10-minute space. And then just really sit with your breath and see if you can bring your belly button into the breath. And see if you can notice, first of all, the first exercise is to notice where that breath is coming from and focus in on around the belly button. And then you're letting the belly do the breathing and then letting the belly move in and out. Once you're comfortable with that, and that might take a week or so, or at the start of your practice, it might take 3 or 4 minutes just to check in with that belly breathing, then you're doing a little bit of holding, and you're holding the breath when it's in and you're counting to 4, and then you're breathing out, holding for 4. So you're just bringing some awareness into that belly and that the belly is doing the breath. And then you're making that movement more subconscious. You're bringing conscious awareness to that movement, so then it can become the automatic normal. And this can really help to calm that fight and flight nervous system. So rather than your fight and flight system kicking in, you're actually going to help that stay in a rest and digest mode, because you're working with that connection between the primary sling in the body. The primary sling we talk about is like your deep hip flexors and your diaphragm and the muscles up and deep into your jaw, and the connection that has into that brain stem, into the activation unit of your deep primary sling, so into the deeper part of the brain, around reptilian brain.
Now that's really interesting. Okay, so I've got breathing techniques to try.
If we get that foundation right, I think this is super important. The little bit that I was going to share with you guys about John Kerwin's story. So John Kerwin was like a hero of mine. Do you remember?
He's a fantastic rugby player.
You remember him? And John Kerwin was speaking about his experience with anxiety when he was playing for the All Blacks. So he was playing at a really, really super high level, but he was experiencing this huge, massive amounts of anxiety, and he felt a lot of guilt and shame around that anxiety, and that he was a well-fit person. He was well and fit. He was an elite athlete, but he was having to take this pill to be able to perform. And he spoke to his dad about the shame, and his dad was like, "Mate, I'm having to take 26 pills a day to keep me alive because of his heart condition. He had like a triple bypass. This is something where I am right now to be able to help me to get well. And perhaps you need to do this as well. This is part of your journey." And to hear John Kerwin speak about that and his experience, and him as one of my heroes, that really gave me permission to really speak about me and my history of anxiety. And at the time, it was at the stage where I was playing high level rugby for me. Now, I definitely wasn't playing for the All Blacks, but I was playing a very high level rugby for me. And what I realized now that I check in and now that I look back on my history of myself and my body and what I was what I was asking of my body. I was asking a huge amount of my body. I was asking academically, intellectually, socially, and physically. I was really training really hard, and in a lot of ways, I was the fittest that I've ever been. But actually, I was the most stressed and potentially one of the most fatigued states I've ever been in. And this bit about the breath and about the strength of the breath is fascinating. There's a massive amount that we can do to retrain the brain and retrain the breath, and that connection between the brain and the breath. And we just need a bit of space and a bit of time to do that. And it takes a while for us to be able to have the I would say, again, that word permission, to be able to believe that we can retrain our brain and our breath. And that, I think, allows us to be able to have the space and the time to be able to retrain our mind, to retrain our thoughts, and retrain where we're at in our head. Because for me now, that anxiety story has totally changed as I've been able to change my expectation of my body and what I put it through, what I ask of it. So I'm probably not as big and muscly now, but I'm definitely happier.
Tell me about fascia and the importance that it plays in terms of body movement, etc.
Kind of like when you peel a banana, you have your skin of your banana, and you have the tissue, the flesh of the actual fruit itself. It's like this kind of white stringy layer in between that envelopes and combines and just makes the actual structure of the fruit. And that makes up quite a lot of our connective tissue. And really what the fascia wants is it wants to be able to move. It wants to be able to move freely. And that's where exercises like yoga, you mentioned that you've found a bit of benefit from doing your practice, where movements in the yoga practice and also through like Pilates or natural movement, they're quite good at working with those slings of fascia and keeping them healthy. And they really like to move. They like to be active. They like to be balanced. And you can actually get a massive benefit by working with your fascia and looking to balance the fascia rather than like looking to be really strong and add a lot of strength or add a lot of endurance. You can actually correct posture really easily by working with those slings of fascia.
And I've heard you talk about loosening up the fascia with a tennis ball.
Yeah. So really easy way to do this when you're by yourself and perhaps you can't get to a therapist, as a lot of people have been doing over the lockdown, is using a simple tool like a tennis ball to be able to work into the tangles in the fascia and being able to work into and loosen and to break up those adhesions, kind of like where when we might cook pasta, we might have that real stuckness of spaghetti stuck together afterwards. You're able to get into that kind of mess and tangle and able to work into that in the same way that a therapist might get in with their thumbs or with their knuckles or elbows and work through that. You're actually able to do quite a bit of that yourself. And that's what I teach a lot in my workshops.
I've asked you about a number of wellness areas. Can you give me one of your general wellness tips that will make a difference to people listening?
Yeah, napping, sleeping, and being able to take rest and being able to switch off is so key, I think, for that brain health and for fascia health, and having the ability to be able to switch from on to doing, to be able to switch off to being. And that, as I see, like when you're at home, working from home, I think this is a massive opportunity people have to be able to take the 20 minutes, and even if it's on the couch, just be able to take the time to switch off from your digital environment and just let the brain come into rest.
That's good advice again. Yeah, I think we spend our whole lives running about chasing technology, etc. So yeah, any relaxation away from that can only be a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, like, some people talk about meditation and some people talk about these specific techniques. I think you can build that. Like, that is something which is, if it feels right for you, you can go down that route. But in the end goal, I think, or a basic step to that is just be able to give yourself permission to take that time and give yourself permission to take that 20 minutes, because you're going to be able to show up so much more for yourself, for your family, for your friends, for your office, for your work, if you've taken that time for yourself. And I think this is the big part there, is giving yourself permission to be able to take that and to do that, that rest and relaxation for your own body.
Good advice again. Thank you. What's your favorite book in the area of wellness? And
there was a book called the Talent Goldmine. Talent Goldmine was a amazing book that I read, and there is a lot of I think data in there. A part of my brain really likes data and really likes story based around examples and science. And this book talks about talent gold mines, and it talks about how the culture of talent and the culture of expertise is built in little small pockets. And that really kind of got me thinking about how we build healthy cultures within organizations, how we develop that, and how we nurture that idea of well-being being part of our culture, as opposed to something which we do, or something which we buy in, or something which is like a nice to have.
And do you have any favorite TED Talks or motivational videos?
Yeah, the one by Brené Brown, where she does a TED Talk speaking about vulnerability. For me, that was a really fascinating exploration into her data, her research around vulnerability, and into vulnerability being a real skill that may not come naturally, but is so empowering and so powerful. And Brené is wonderful in how she presents. And I feel as though there's a piece there for us in organizations, for us to be able to check in and to note how we are that day. And even though that might be a scary thing, to be able to name how you are, like maybe I'm feeling anxious right now, and to be able to name that and share and see that other people are in the same category as you, to break down that stigma that actually that doesn't need to be a scary thing. You may not be judged as less than. Actually, you can be seen as being a human, as showing up. And I think she's great. Brené Brown is definitely one of my favorite podcasters as well. She's doing a podcast now. I really recommend that.
I've seen the TED Talk, but I must check out the podcast. I didn't know she was doing that. Any favorite quotes you'd like to share?
Yeah, my favorite one is, I think the character's name is Red from the Shawshank Redemption. And he says, you got to get busy living or get busy dying. And I think that is a really nice one there for me. I think that idea of getting yourself in the game, and putting your best foot forward, putting your priority forward for how you want to show up and for how you want to be. I think that really encapsulates a really good attitude to life. Yeah. I would maybe disagree with the getting busy part, but I like what he's putting across there.
No, I love that. Thanks. Well, thanks again for your time. You've been very generous. If someone wants to reach out and get in touch with you, Joseph, how can they go about
that? So the best way is through my Instagram at the moment, and that's Jospeh_Devlin. You can reach out through that. I've got links on the bio there for workshops that are coming up in the future. My website is jospeh-devlin.com. You can reach out to me through that as well.
Well, thanks again for your time and sharing all of your wisdom. Much appreciated.